Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross 3, the official video game where today we are going to be playing a custom replica version of the 2021 Orlando 2 Supercross in the game and talking about the real Orlando 2 Supercross, breaking down a lot of things because holy smokes, there was a lot to talk about from this race, particularly with this 250 class. So we're going to jump right into it. Again, spoiler alert if you haven't been with us before. It's basically like a little podcast here recapping the race and talking about some things. So spoiler alert if you haven't watched Orlando 2, but if you have, let's jump in and discuss, shall we? So the first thing I wanted to talk about is basically the, I guess, talking point from this weekend that has more or less broken through. You know, obviously the 450 class, there's a lot of stuff to talk about from there. Who won the 250 class is a big deal as well. But I feel like a lot of people are talking about this Cameron McAdoo running into a medic situation that happened at the start of the first 250 main event. So the 250 main event got underway. There's a big crash. Jeremy Martin went down. Alex Martin went down. Alex Martin, I should say, was laying in the track. And the red flag needed to come out to get him off the track because he was dazed and I guess he was concussed. So the red flag came out after about half the field had already gone over the finish line jump, and they waved the red flag to the rest of the field that had gone over, but the front half of the field didn't get it, so they came through the first rhythm lane and got the red cross flag, not the red flag, but that's, you know, essentially the wheels on the ground flag, and you're supposed to remain wheels on the ground all the way until the incident spot, which was after the Supercross triple. The red lights are flashing on the Supercross triple. Everybody in that group rolled the triple. And then they were mostly rolling the rollers after the triple. Some guys were kind of like pumping them really fast and still hitting them sort of like whoops, but they were basically, you know, coming to that spot of Martin laying down in the corner. And for whatever reason, a track worker had blocked off everybody from going to the inside of Martin, so they wanted them to go to the outside of Martin. And Cooper goes by to the outside, and McAdoo is following Justin Cooper out there. And then a medic crossing from the midsection of the track over to Alex Martin gets hit by McAdoo coming by. McAdoo kind of hits him and then turns and hits Martin, who's on the ground, Alex Martin on the ground, and kind of runs into him. And I think McAdoo is just able to stay on two wheels, but obviously not a very good situation. Now, the race was red flagged, eventually restarted. Justin Cooper again starts out front, cruises away to the win. McAdoo finishes second in the main event, and the Martin brothers are hurt, but we'll get to that in a minute. So this situation, there's like two counterpoints I'm seeing. One is saying that this is all McAdoo's fault and he should have been DQ'd and everything like that. And the other is mostly saying McAdoo had nothing wrong here and this is a flagger situation. I am in a weird like middle ground spot, I guess, here, where I think that more than anything, the flaggers are to blame for this. And I'm going to get into a rant about this in a second. But you cannot go blameless if you're McAdoo or really anybody that was kind of racing to a degree all the way through that incident. Like, I see this far too often when the red cross flag is displayed. The guys are kind of like, they're still in race mode. I get why it happens. The way that the rule is written makes it so that they can do this, but they're still kind of like trying to stay as close to the next person in front of them as possible instead of regarding the issue, which is safety at hand at that point. And it's absolutely ridiculous and makes our sport look so bush league that we have this situation where a red flag comes out, and for a long time it has already been out and been being talked about, and then a medic gets hit by a rider, and then the rider who's actually down also gets hit by a rider. Scary scenes, right? Because if that rider, you know, let's just, you know, God forbid Alex Martin wasn't feeling his legs at that point, then you have Cameron McAdoo running over him while he's needing to be held up and held into a good spot, and, you know, his peg goes into his back and stuff like that. No, awful, terrible look safety-wise. And the medic getting run into, it is what it is. Like, he didn't get hurt, fortunately. He just kind of got knocked over. But it's still something that cannot happen. And the medics have been a bit of a problem this year as well. Doc Bodner ran across the track during a heat race at Houston 3 and almost got hit by Justin Barcia. And for some reason, it seems like the medical crew does not seem to have good situational awareness this year or something like that. But either way, this whole situation, we need it to be fixed. I am going to say that this is 80% the flagger's fault, because why do we not have more red flags being waved on the rhythm lanes instead of red cross flags? There was no flagger on top of the Supercross triple to point these guys in any direction. There was still no red cross flag or any flag of all being displayed that entire section, the Supercross triple, all the way until Martin's incident. So Why do we not have more guys holding red flags on the track or anything like that? I have no idea. That makes no sense to me. For the personnel that they actually have on the floor, they wouldn't have more guys holding red flags. The red cross flag has already been an issue this year. The blue flags have been an issue this year. I'm sure yellow flags will become an issue at some point this year. Flagging in general has been a problem, which is why I put this mostly on the flaggers in this specific circumstance. However, McAdoo did still hit a medic and hit Martin and cannot go completely blameless in this situation, in my opinion. And he has come out and apologized, and good on him, because he felt bad about it and he felt like he did make a mistake and felt like he needed to say his piece and say sorry to Alex and the medical guy and stuff. And like I said, fortunately Alex was not more seriously hurt. He does have a concussion, but he was going to be okay by getting kind of like ran into in the leg and stuff like that, because he didn't have a more extraneous injury than the concussion. So in my opinion, this just needs to be fixed. This is not we need to just like laugh it off and be like, haha, this happens, it's Supercross, it's weird. This needs to be fixed. We talked about this all damn year, with the flaggers being an issue, with Kenny jumping on a red cross that he couldn't see, and then the very next week, Dean Wilson doesn't get out of the way from blue flags, and then Vince Freeze causes Justin Barcia and Eli Tomac to crash, and that might have been a blue flag issue, and now we have a legitimate safety issue where flaggers didn't either do their job, or there was some sort of mix-up where they didn't have flags, or I don't know what happened to get us to this point, but there's riders down on the track with the race coming by and racers hitting medics and the rider down. However we got to that point, it needs to be fixed. I don't care, blame at this point. All I want is some fix to this problem. It might not happen this year, but I hope it happens sooner than later. We need to get LED systems on the bars, maybe, where these guys have a blue light flashing when there's a blue flag, or a red light flashing when there's a red cross situation, or a red flag out, or a yellow flag if there's a caution situation. You have a yellow light flash on your bars. Sure, we could do that. We also maybe should have in-helmet communication, one-way in-helmet communication from a team rider or team personnel down to the riders. Maybe it could be from the AMA itself, but the AMA is still ridiculous in the first place. I don't think they should be able to communicate with the riders. So maybe team personnel being able to talk in-helmet, stuff like that. More flaggers out there with better flagging and better duties and stuff like that. Whatever needs to happen, fix it. Like, it's ridiculous that we're at this point already in the season. We are 8 rounds into the season. We have had 4 problems with flaggers or something to do with flagging that has caused more or less uproar every week. And I'm sick of it at this point. Like, we've talked about it so much with the Wilson situation, with the Freeze situation. Roxon was pissed off because he couldn't see the red cross flag, then jumped and then lost points. And who knows, that might cost him a championship. I mean, this championship is close in this 450 class. So again, I don't care about blame at this point. It's sad it happened. I don't think McAdoo should be disqualified. I don't think he did it on purpose. However, whatever needs to be done, it needs to be fixed. And I'm looking at you, Feld. I'm looking at you, AMA. Get together. Fix it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of watching this happen every week and make our sport look like the mockery that it just did on a Saturday night because we have this Bush League stuff happen. So, again, I don't mean to, super rant about it, but this is ridiculous. We need change now. It needs to happen now, and just start somewhere. If in-helmet communication is the first step, do it. If getting more flaggers out there is the step, do it. Something. Change it. Change the rule book. Change it so that it makes it so that these guys have to slow down very harshly through those sections where it's a safety concern and funnel into line. Make it so that there's a caution system even, where if there's an injury on track and the medics need to move a rider off the track, instead of halting the race entirely, make them kind of do like a virtual safety car that happens in Formula 1 and kind of stagger them through the field a little bit, roll them around slowly so they can kind of catch their breath. And then once you move the guy off the track, wave the green flag again. But as it is right now, unbelievable that this is even a talking point and that we saw this happen on Saturday night, in my opinion. So anyway, that's my rant on that. You guys can form your own opinions in the comment section below. Let's move on from that. Talk about this 250 class a little bit because it blew up in our faces really quickly. Jeremy Martin, probably going to be a title threat, dislocates his shoulder. His shoulder is back in. He's awaiting an MRI. That happened in the first start. He rolled the double and Styles Robertson jumped onto his back. I think that was weird circumstantial first turn racing stuff, but it just seems to always happen to J-Mart, which is very unfortunate. Then Alex Martin, we've already talked about him. The concussion, it sounds like he was pretty loopy after the race, but will mostly be okay. So that's good to hear with him. Jordan Smith went down in the whoops. It sounds like he just kind of took a hard hit, maybe knocked the wind out of himself and couldn't finish the race. So it sounds like he will be back as well. I don't know. I'm probably missing somebody at this point. I'm trying to think of the names that I can go through and talk about. Adam Cianciarulo in the 450 class went down. It sounds like broken collarbone. Adam Enticknap broke his collarbone in qualifying practice. I don't know. Long list of riders that got hurt, unfortunately. And kind of a crazy night with a lot of crashing in general. 250 rookie guys definitely had a rough night. Carson Mumford didn't make the main. Just a couple other guys that probably should have made the mains did not make the mains. So what a weird night. But in the end, it's won by Justin Cooper, who, for lack of, really much beyond this, it's kind of impressive that Cooper was able to win this race just because of the fact that only 4 weeks ago he broke a bone in his foot and he had to take like a week and a half or two off from riding. So to get back to this level this quickly, clearly he did have at least reasonable fitness to last most of the race. I thought he did tremendous holding off McAdoo and keeping himself reserved. I thought he maybe was going to fade there a little bit late, but he looked totally comfortable. McAdoo looked good. Marchbanks in his first ride with Club obviously proved that PC was kind of stupid in letting him go because he gets right back on the podium, and now he's in the title fight because, the attrition rate of the East was ridiculous, but the attrition rate of this 250 West in one night has seemingly like halved the competition for the championship. But we'll see how it plays out, I guess. So honestly, after that 250 main event, I was happy for Cooper. I was happy for McAdoo as his career best finish. Obviously Marchbanks, he's probably feeling pretty good too. Swole got fourth. That was, I think, his best finish too. I'm happy for these guys, and I'm glad that we got the championship started, but I felt so deflated because I felt like everything that this championship kind of promised to be had already kind of blown up. Like the J-Mart Cooper rivalry that we might have had, gone. Jordan Smith coming back from injury, how was he going to fare? Gone. Alex Martin, a new team, new dynamic, all this stuff, gone. Like, it just sucked the wind out of the stadium, out of everything, I felt like. And I was really bummed. So, like I said, good job for Justin Cooper getting that win. That's a big deal for him. And now he's sitting very pretty to, maybe run away with this championship. He's got a bunch of guys behind him, aside from Marchbanks, that have never really been in this position before. Marchbanks obviously won Daytona, but McAdoo's never won a race, never fought for a championship. Marchbanks, it's only his third year of Supercross. Like, I think Cooper's in a really prime position to make this series his, but I guess with the attrition rate of this series, you really have no idea at this point because the 250 East, blew up in a lot of people's faces, and this 250 West class already took a huge hit, which is obviously a bummer. So anyway, I don't know, like, I feel just deflated talking about the 250s, so I want to move on and talk about the 450s now, but hopefully my opinions on kind of all this stuff made sense and it doesn't sound like I'm too pissed off, because I'm not mad. I'm not like overly mad about this stuff. I'm just sad. Not mad, I'm sad. So let's talk about the 450 class instead. Cooper Webb picks up his third win of the season and his 14th career victory. He now passes a lot of guys and moves to within 4 career wins of Ken Roczen in 450 Supercross, which is crazy because you feel like Roczen has been around and winning races for a while now. And Webb, while he did win the championship 2 years ago, hadn't even won a race until basically exactly 2 years ago now. So, Webb has definitely really come alive here these last couple years, and this is the Webb that I feel like we kind of saw in 2019 coming to the front now. The guy that's going to start up front and make life difficult for you and be kind of solid as a rock. Maybe not the fastest outright guy on the track every night, but damn, he is going to be tough to beat if that's the kind of guy you're going to get every week. I think the difference right now, though, is I believe Ken Roczen is still better than Webb. He seems like he gets better starts most of the time. He's been faster most of the rounds, and this is only the second time in 8 rounds. I don't know why I couldn't do math right there. Second time in 8 rounds that he hasn't landed on the podium, and all the other times, he's been charging forward and getting close or landing on the podium anyway, so not worried about Kenny at all, but he did lose a big points chunk there. It went from a 13-point lead down to a 6-point lead in one race, and Webb closed up. Now, probably the biggest talking point in this 450 class right now is what the heck is going on with Eli Tomac. Like, if you are an Eli Tomac fan right now, like, I do sympathize with you a little bit, because this is not at all what I expected to see out of Eli in this Orlando swing. Now, we're going to Daytona. The Atlantas are still coming. Those seem like races and tracks that Tomac should be very good at, and that could be a way to kind of turn his season around. But I said this on Twitter, and I'm going to stick by it. I think we're on a 2-horse race now, people. I don't believe Eli Tomac is going to be your 2021 Monster Energy Supercross champion. I'm sure I'll say that, and he'll go on a ridiculous tear in the last 9 rounds. However, nobody's ever come from this far back in the championship, and no one's ever come from this far back in the championship with few rounds to go either. Like, Tomac had already took a huge chunk out of Dungey by this point in the season, if you think back to 2017 when he was clawing his way back into a championship scenario. At this point of the season, Tomac was basically, I think, 16, 17 points out of Dungey when at one point he was close to 30. Now it's, he's 31 points away from Roczen and Webb. And while, Roczen does still have the, I guess, kind of chance of implosion that we've seen out of Kenny in the past, I don't think Cooper does. Cooper last year proved that he's probably better in the second half of the season than he is in the first, and he's building up to a level where he's very good right now with the 3 wins so far. So I feel like if you're Eli at this point, dude, panic button maybe out for this championship because it's not looking good, in my opinion. I think we got to, maybe see how Daytona goes before we make completely, stamp it opinions about it. But in my opinion, just looking at past history and how everything would suggest, it's too big of a road, in my opinion. I think Eli Tomac's championship run is done, in my opinion, but I know some people are going to riot in the chat because I just said that, so have at it. Yeah, bit of a bummer. Talking about who did finish on the podium, though, I thought they were both really strong rides out of Marvin Musquin and Justin Barcia. Musquin ran the fastest lap of the race, and for good chunk of the race there was the fastest rider on the track. He got set back a little bit at the beginning because he passed Barcia, and then Barcia passed him in the very next corner, almost put him down. Marvin almost crashed in the whoops right after that, lost the spot to Webb. And by the time he got back to Barcia, it took him a little bit to get around him. Then he had a gap to catch down to Cianciarulo and Webb. And I think if Marv had got to Cooper before Cooper passed Cianciarulo, we would have had a real interesting race. But Cooper, I think, probably knew that was coming and got around AC kind of when he needed to. And then Marv took a little bit too long to try to get AC, and then AC obviously crashed in the whoops, and that's where the alleged broken collarbone comes from. But I think if Marv had passed AC a little bit quicker and gone with Coop, we may have had just a little bit of a different race, because it did seem like Marv was going at least fast enough to run Cooper down at a certain point of the race, and then it just kind of fizzled out a little bit, and obviously he finished like 3.5 seconds back in the end, I think. But Marv looked really good, and I was excited to see him back to his usual form. He said he made a bunch of bike changes during the week, and if you remember back to Orlando 1, they were supposed to have a bunch of changes for Orlando 1 from Austria for Marvin, and then there was a shipping delay, so he didn't get that. So now he has all those parts that he really wanted on the bike now. Said the testing went really well, and he also said, in like a kind of weird Marvin-esque way, said he had pleasure riding on a very difficult track, which shows him that he's very happy with his setup, because he thought the track was very challenging. The whoops were very hard and not the easiest to hit. And Marv said he felt kind of comfortable all the way through on them. So I just thought that was like kind of unique to hear Marvin say that and hear his thoughts on how he felt about that. And maybe he's a little bit more of a dangerous factor moving into the second half of this season. He's not going to be in the championship hunt, but maybe he's a guy that suddenly you put in that discussion for race winning speed. Like, he's obviously been close enough to get on the podium 3 times now, and arguably was the fastest rider on the track late in the race there. So, I'm not going to say for sure he'll win a race, but I do think that we can look at him a little bit more differently than we did the first 6 rounds now, because I feel like he's kind of hit a new mold with himself a bit. The same for Jason Anderson, who is coming alive lately too. Fastest in qualifying, didn't get a good start in the main, but charged all the way forward and got 5th. And passed that man that we just talked about, Eli Tomac, going backwards, and Anderson taking advantage of that. So Anderson came from pretty far back to get Tomac and pass him for 5th, which was, nice to see Anderson back to a little bit of form that we know that he can run. But I feel like the sort of ride of the day, ride of the night, if you want to call it, came from Justin Barcia to get 3rd, which sounds weird to say, gets 3rd, and I think it's the ride of the night. However, he did have a vicious crash in qualifying, high-sided after the finish line jump, pile drove the ground, said he kind of hurt his rib cage a little bit and thought maybe he had a cracked rib or 2, but then got checked out and there was nothing broken, or else he said, I'd be in a lot more pain if something was broken right now, but I'm feeling okay. And he said it was a little bit tough late in the race to still kind of breathe and keep, mentally focused on everything. But he did start running down Marvin and Cooper late in the race, and he did I mean, just a ridiculously good job to keep Tomac and Roczen behind him. Now, you can say I think both of those guys are maybe a little bit nicer than they could have been with Justin. Everybody knows Justin's not the easiest to pass, so I think those guys probably were just being extra cautious around him. But I still think that Justin, you know, did a good job to ride a strong defensive race. He switched up his lines in the main event. He was jumping the whoops. He said he was awful at them, so he switched to skimming them and was decent enough to keep those guys behind him. So, you know, just some things like that I don't know if many people will really talk about. They'll just look at Barsha finishing third and be like, oh, that's cool, like he finished third. But I personally felt like that was a really good ride to see out of him, and see that he still at least has the fire inside of him to stick in it with this, you know, championship hunt. I don't think he's in the championship hunt, but I think that he, you know, probably believes that if things get kicked off and go crazy, he's close enough. And good on him. So, you know, I thought that Marv and Barsha both kind of rode great and kind of proved that their worth in the class is still very valuable compared to what is, you know, the quote-unquote big three right now, which is Tomac, Kenny, and Coop. But yeah, I think it's a two-horse race. I think it's down to Kenny and Coop, and 6 points between them. Hey, you know, we're heading into Daytona. The series always starts at Daytona, they say. We have an off week next week, so we're not going to have a racing this weekend. But it's still just, you know, nice to see that there is a close championship right now, and has the makings to be a pretty interesting one moving into the second half of this season. So that's my wrap-up synopsis, whatever you want to call it, from the Orlando 2 Supercross. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. As always, appreciate it if you guys would subscribe, like, comment in the comment section below, get involved in the chat, bench race with us, chit-chat it up, and appreciate you guys stopping by, watching another video here on Start Your System. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. So long for now.